What's up guys, Anton here at DPR, and this week I wanted to talk about the breeding season. Is it good to start pairing your females really early? Is it good to have a condensed or a spread season? Let's jump right into that. So we all have basically our own take at when to breed our animals, when it's best for us, and I feel like everybody's collection is really different at the end of the day. I know that personally what has always been a standard in my collection was I was starting to get a few females that were growing like fairly early from January to March. I had always a few girls, maybe like 3 or 4 over like 30 something clutches, and most of my females were starting to go from April to July. These were really my months of intense breeding from April to July. So it was kind of a fairly condensed season with a few girls here and there. I think that we've been pretty good because the last time we've had no eggs in the incubator was December 19th, 2019. So it's been a long time that we've had, always eggs cooking in the incubator. So although most of our season is kind of all condensed into, a few months, we've always had a bunch of clutches going all over the season. So we've pretty much always been breeding in a really traditional way, starting to pair our females in October, and 6 months later we're starting to have eggs in March, April. So that's mostly what you'll see all around over like most breeders will pair that way. But there are a lot of breeders that have really different season than the rest of us. You take a look at Aussie Boyd's. He has a incredibly condensed season at like a very early stage of the year. You'll see him hatch most of his stuff from February to April or May. His season mostly ends at this time. So it's basically his season ends at the time that most breeder actually start to get eggs. Another guy like Justin Kubylka from Kinova, he has eggs all around the year. He has a lot more clutches during his season, but he's mostly spread during the entire season. A friend of mine, Will Morose from Royal Canadian Reptiles, I've talked to him a couple times about that, and his collection is mostly condensed into like a 2-3 month span within May to July. All of his clutches go in that time of the year. So there's a lot of reasons for that, and also there's a few ways that you can change that. Personally, I haven't really modified anything within my collection to be in that range of the year. It just kind of fell that way, that my females would go in that period from April to July. But there are different ways that you can actually try to modify that season. And so far, from what I've heard, I haven't done it myself, but from what I've heard, most of the time, that change will come after a really bad year. What I mean by that is that let's say you have 100 females and you only have 30 females that will go at this time. The 70 females that did not go the previous year, if you start breeding them very early or very late, you will definitely affect that season that's coming next year. So let's say you start breeding your females in August, then 6 months after that, you will start getting some clutches, most likely because by pairing, you'll have those females stimulated and they will start to develop those follicles earlier in the year. But a guy like Miguel, for example, at Always Evolving Pythons, he has a very late season. He's finishing to hatch his stuff, and we're in January, starting the February month. So he just finished his previous season. He haven't started his year. So there's a lot of different aspects that you can work with that, and it's really it's a difficult process to change that season, because when your collection's set to something, it will most likely always go like that. It can sometimes change on its own, but most of the time you kind of have to provoke it. And also there's pros and cons of having a condensed, a spread season, or having an early or a really late season. When it comes to having a condensed versus a spread season, it's really like what's best for you. Personally, I would prefer to have a really spread season throughout the year. So starting to have clutches now all the way to August, September, and October. Personally, this is what I prefer, and the main reason for that is just the excitement of hatching babies all year round. Personally, it's just such a pleasure to have, always something to look for in the incubator, always something cooking, always something hatching. You always, you always have content for YouTube, which is pretty cool. If you have everything condensed in 1 month, not in 1 month, but like in one period of the year, it's basically everything's there, and it's just madness. But if you're someone that rather give everything within 3 months, do all the hatchling babies, all the sales, all the shipping, everything's done within that 3-4 months in your year, and then you're kind of free for the rest of the year. Another aspect about having like a really condensed versus a spread season is that most of the time, when you have a really spread season, you will have different clutches on different projects spread throughout your year. So let's say I have 4 females in the Desert Ghost Clown project, and I have a female that lays in March. Well, let's say like the eggs are hatching in March, the other female are hatching in June, then in July, and then the last one in October. The thing is, with the first babies you will have, you don't necessarily know what you're going to hit in the other one. So you might be tempted to sell one of the baby you have when you think like, oh, probably I'm going to have that again in another clutch. And maybe you sell that snake, and then on the other 3 clutches, you don't hit it. So you sold that animal thinking you were going to hit it in the other ones. And well, now we just don't have it anymore. So basically what you would have to do there is just hold back that animal throughout the entire year. If you have the space, the time, and you're just ready to put that energy into an animal, there's no problem at all with that. It's all right. You'll sell bigger, larger animals, healthier animals to your customers, which is good. But you need that space. And if your season is really condensed, let's say your 4 clutches of Desert Ghosts are hatching 2 in June and 2 in July, well, within 3 months, you'll know everything you've hatched in that project, so you'll know what to keep and what to sell right away. You don't have to keep an animal for too long. So this is another aspect about that spread versus condensed season that's really interesting also to think about. When it comes to having a very early or a really late season, there are pros and cons there as well. In my perspective, I would rather have a very early season rather than a fairly late season. The main reason behind that is that we're in a cold climate and we can't ship from December to April. Our shipping opens in April. So if we have a very late season and most of our babies are hatching, in September, October, November, December, well, we won't be able to ship those animals all the way to the next spring. So basically in April. So all the last clutches from last year were really spread throughout the year. All of our last clutches, we just couldn't send them. We had babies that were hatching, the shipping was coming to an end, and the babies, the snakes just didn't have time to eat and be ready to ship. So we had to hold back those animals. So this is, not ideal for us since we're in a fairly cold climate. We really prefer to have a very early season, and that's mainly because we want to hatch our animals during the winter. And by doing so, we just have all those months where shipping's closed, where we can just feed our animals, get them ready, healthy, big size, so that when our customer gets their animals, they're just super healthy and in perfect shape. So this is probably the best reason for us why we want to have a very early season. But there's also another aspect to consider. Every year, we kind of, personally I do that, so I guess a lot of people are also doing that. We all have that, what are going to be our main purchases during the year. So we make ourselves a list of the main animals we want to go get to fill up the gaps in our collection or add new projects or, consolidate everything. So we have those target animals. And I really feel like when you have a very early season, you kind of hit that new year with the first nice animals available. When I see Aussie Snakes, he's posting the very first combos of the year super early, and people are like, holy crap, that's the first snake I wanted, that's the thing I needed to my collection, and they go get those snakes. When you're really early during the season, you kind of have that advantage of other breeders that would breed later in the year. You have the very first customers open to the market, in the sense that, you're just the first one to have those crazy snakes for the new year. I feel that this is a real asset to your collection if you're able to do a fairly early season. We're actually starting the first week of February and we already have 6 clutches down. We have some females that are due to lay this week. We have also some ovulations and some great follicle developments. It's by far the earliest season we've ever had at DPR. Usually, like I said before, we get roughly between like 3 to 4 clutches before April. And now we're already at 6 and it's just like the end of January. So it's a really early season for us. I'm not sure how it's gonna go. Is it gonna be condensed or is it gonna be mostly, you know, spread throughout the year? I feel like it's gonna be spread throughout the year since we have just a bunch of females that are dropping now. A few of them are developing and we'll see with the February ultrasounds how it's gonna go. I really feel like it's gonna be spread. So basically it's everything I could hope for. Fairly early and then, you know, spread throughout the year for the rest of it. So fun all year around and, you know, a bunch of clutches at the beginning. So we're going to show you a bit of the females that just laid some clutches and what's coming. All right, so in the females that already laid this January, and actually we had 2 clutches in December of 2020, which are technically counting for a 2022 clutch because the babies are just going to come in 2022. All right, so for the females that already laid for our 2022 seasons, we had a few back in 2020, but basically those babies are hatching in 2022. So even though they're laid in 2021, we're considering them a 2022 clutch because the babies are, you know, in this year. So the very first female that gave us a clutch, she's gonna hatch. Well, the clutch is gonna hatch this weekend, and it's a pretty cool one. This is a female that we produced here in the past at DPR. This is a black pastel hypo female, and she was paired to a she has a real bad shed stuck on her head. In the winter here, it is absolutely disgusting how it gets super dry in our season. But this beautiful female was paired to a Mojave Cypress 100% head hypo. So the goal would be to make, you know, black pastel Mojave Cypress hypos. This should be very interesting. So this was the very first female that gave us a clutch. Then we've had a double head Desert Ghost Pied to a double head Desert Ghost Pied male. 1 in 16 should be extremely interesting. We've had 7 eggs, 2 went bad during incubations. We are down to 5 eggs, fingers and toes crossed to make a double visual, the Desert Ghost Pied. That would be very interesting. Then one of my most exciting clutch for this season is this female, which is a GHI pinstripe. It's a very simple female. She's starting to recuperate from that breeding. She had like 3 males already. She's a little shy. And the male that paired this girl, this is a male I got from Miguel at Always Evolving Pythons. And it's this absolutely stunning Cypress spot nose fire clown. So could you imagine the outcome of such a clutch? So Cypress spot nose fire clown to GHI pinstripe. So those hats would be madness. Honestly, like, we've had 7 eggs, and if we can be full of Cypress spot nose GHI in this clutch, it would really be a pleasing clutch to look at. I'm super thrilled, honestly. Like, I have no idea what those hats are going to look like, but I feel like just for a hat clutch, no visuals there, this is a extremely exciting clutch. Other than that, we have a beautiful female Mojave lace that's currently in a huge ovulation, and she was paired to a pastel orange dream puzzle. So you can really tell that enormous bulge, that enormous ovulation is going on her, and she is a total glow up. So trying to make lace hat puzzles, and she's a mean girl, so be careful in your hands. But some lace hat puzzles and added with orange dream and Mojave pastel. This should be extremely exciting. I'm just going to close the bin because I don't want to get her too fired up. She's currently ovulating, so I don't want to mess her too much. But that ovulation is totally obvious. And, I noticed that ovulation, I wrote down today we're January 28th, although the video is going to come next week. But I marked down that ovulation was, you can check that right here. That ovulation was, started on January 24th. So we're 4 days later, and I feel like right now she's only at the peak of her ovulation. So that's basically 4 days later. So some females will ovulate very shortly, within 24 hours, that ovulation has, bloom and it's gone. and some females will have a really slow and steady buildup of ovulation, and you will really see that bulge inside of your animal growing and growing, and then it's going to reabsorb, going to shed, and the cycle begins. Another female that we're expecting to get a clutch from in later this February is this honey cypress, and she was paired to a cinnamon sentinel. So already making some crazy hats in the sentinel project. I think cypress and sentinel are going to be a perfect match, and honey is just a really nice bell mutation in the bell complex that fits pretty well with the cypress. So just making a honey cypress sentinel version eventually in the next few years is going to be also a cool add to the sentinel project. Then I want to show you a very nice male that I got from Mandy over in I don't remember the name properly. I'm going to drop it down here right now because I have a blank, but she's a Canadian breeder, amazing animals, and I got this male from her. I was like, she offered me that male, and I was like, why not? I can always use such a snake in my collection. I don't know exactly what I was going to do with it, but it wouldn't hurt to have such a male. So this is a Orange Dream Enshi Cinnamon Super Vanilla. So basically a super form, which is the Super Vanilla, and a ALS, so act like a super. So basically a allelic combination of cinnamon and Enshi. They are in the same allele. So this male would only give, if paired to a regular, either Enshi vanillas or cinnamon vanilla. So that male was paired to this girl right here, which is a fire yellow belly, and basically the whole idea is to create more crazy, super vanilla, or here actually will be creams, but we can make some Orange Dream yellow belly, Enshi, or cinnamon creams. Could you imagine the look of those snakes? If this male looks as nice as this, the Enshi Orange Dream Cinnamon Super Vanilla, I'm really curious to see what a yellow belly version would look like. I think it would just like enhance the whole coloration of the animal and create something really nice. Sometimes they don't have to be the most expensive clutches and with the most complex double recessive and all of that. Sometimes just some simple codoms with the right genes can also be really exciting. So I'm super thrilled to see the outcome of this clutch. All right, so that was it for the beginning of our season. What's gonna come in the next few weeks? I think February we're gonna start hatching like 3 or 4 clutches, 4 clutches actually. I think the rest are in March, and so we're gonna start posting that. We're gonna update you on that clutch, and hopefully we can hit some crazy cypress hypo combos. That should be very cool. And then we're always gonna update you on everything that's happening here at DPR. I hope that was really helpful. I would really appreciate if you guys subscribe to this YouTube channel, give us a thumbs up, follow us on Instagram, and cheers, stay tuned.